Let's get ready to rumble. And no, I'm not actually talking about the March Madness basketball tournament. I'm talking about the current state of the Nashville real estate market. Things are heating up and competition is as stiff as ever. So in today's video, we're diving into what you need to know about the current state of the Nashville real estate market. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin Martin, formerly Caitlin Davis, but recently married. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I am a local Nashville real estate agent, and I am so excited you're here. If this is your first time, please feel free to click down below to subscribe to be notified every time I release new video content. So as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about the current state of the Nashville real estate market here in March of 2021. Yes, I am in basketball attire. Anyone that knows me knows I'm actually a huge college football girl. I'm a Vol through and through, but hey, they're gonna be in the tournament, so I'm gonna watch. But before we start talking about Nashville real estate statistics, give me just a second. There we go. That's better. Okay, so what is currently happening in the Nashville real estate market? Well, we continue to see really strong buyer demand and just not enough homes on the market. So for the February 2021 statistics, home sales in February of 2021 were actually up 4% over home sales in February 2020. Our numbers are really showing the story, right? So with our numbers in February of 2020, we actually had just shy of 9,100 properties on the market. In February of 2021, we had just shy of 4,500. So we are drastically down in inventory while we're continuing to see this big buyer demand. So not only are we seeing locals who are wanting to get into the Nashville real estate market because they really do want to take advantage of those low inventory rates, we're also continuing to see this massive influx that are coming from other states like California, New York, Illinois. We just continue to see that demand, which is only continuing to drive up the buyer demand, and yet we're faced with the low housing inventory. And so that's kind of fueling it. Not that it's been called a crisis, but to me it almost feels that way because we just have such a demand and so little product. You know, that's essentially like if you're thinking about, you know, we've got all these 64 teams in this March Madness that are vying for one championship. That's pretty much how it feels right now. We've got all of these buyers and like one home on the market. And so again, I know I've mentioned this in previous videos, but let's just kind of take a look at what these numbers actually look like. So because of the big strong demand versus the inventory, we are continuing to see multiple offer situations. So you need to go ahead, if you are looking to buy in Nashville, you need to go ahead and prepare yourself for that. So any home, if it is priced right and marketed well, it is going for over asking with multiple offers. And so you really need to come to the table ready for battle. You can't say, oh, well, you know, let's try and negotiate all our way through this. No, you have to come to the table with your strongest foot forward. That is just how it works when we're in the kind of seller's market that we're in right now. So if you're looking at your budget and what you can afford, just make sure that you go ahead and allocate room to go over asking. So recently, what we've been seeing for over asking, you know, I normally say that we're in the range of between 5 to 25 or 30,000. We're starting to scale a little over that, which is a little, I don't know, I guess it's just a little off-putting for me because you've got to think, okay, at some point, things have to level back out, right? So if you are thinking about buying here, depending on the property, depending on the neighborhood, depending on where you are, just allocate in your budget to go exceedingly over. I mean, it is not unheard of right now to go 20, 25, even 30. Now here's the crazy thing, because I know in states like California, I know that Californians can be used to seeing homes go for over asking for 75,000 over, 100,000 over or more. And while that's typically not what we see here, I will tell you that I have seen a few properties in Franklin, in popular neighborhoods, and they have started to creep up towards that one home in particular that closed in the early part of March. It actually went for $75,000 over. Now, it was a beautiful house, it looked immaculate. So these are just things to consider. So don't automatically start thinking, oh my gosh, I have to go 50 or 75. It's going to depend on the neighborhood. It depends on looking at comps. So these are things to consider. So when we look at the actual market numbers in these various places like Franklin, Brentwood, and Nolensville, let's dive in and actually take a look at the numbers. So if you're looking in Franklin, let's take a look here. So in Franklin, as of this recording, there are 77 single family homes on the market. Right now, there are 378 homes that are under contract, and the average days on market is going to be 35. And then you also have the average sales price of about $874,706. So these are things to think about in the Franklin area. Now, it says average days on market 35. So when you look at those numbers and you're pulling the data, it's going to include those few outlier homes that do sit for a really long time. Like there are some that are just in, disrepair, they need a lot of work. And so of course those are gonna sit on the market longer. So that's going to drag down the average. But really and truly, homes right now are going in a day, 2 days, 3 days, just depending on how long the agent lets it sit on the market. So if you are thinking about buying, you do not have time to waste. If a home comes on the market, the agent needs to be getting there, getting you in the door, whether it's, in person or virtually, so that you have a shot at that home, because inventory is turning over so quickly. Sometimes an agent will allow a home to sit for a couple of days to allow as many people to see it as possible before they call for highest and best. But one thing to remember, they may put a deadline and say, hey, highest and best is due in 3 days. That does not necessarily mean that the seller is going to end up honoring that deadline. They may get overwhelmed. They may say, hey, there's too many people coming through my house. And they could say, you know what, I'm going to call it here. Let's go with this offer. So that is why you absolutely do not want to waste any time, because the seller does reserve the right to accept an offer at any point in time. So it's all about moving quickly, being on the ball, not wasting time, and really coming forward with like your best foot forward, right? So I can start to make all the March Madness analogies, how you need to be like suited up for battle, how you need to put your best game plan forward, which is true. And then hopefully if you come out with the highest offer or the best played offer, you're gonna win out. So these are things to think about. Now let's take a look at Brentwood. So in Brentwood, there are currently 37 homes on the market. You have 145 under contract. Average days on market is 28. But again, that's really and truly more, you're looking more at that 1 to 3 day range, because again, those outlying properties that sit longer are what's dragging down the average. And then homes are going for 100% list price and over, and the average sales price in Brentwood is $1,243,567. So these are things to keep in mind. Now, of course, there are homes all across the board, but within the last month, that is the average sales price of a single family home in the Brentwood area. And lastly, let's take a look at Nolensville. So in Nolensville, there are currently 12 active listings, 177 under contract with an average days on market of 14. They are going for 100% plus of list price with an average sales price of $636,152. So these are things to keep in mind. Again, our market continues to roll. We are on fire. We are very much, like I said, dealing with a lot of out-of-state demand as well as local buyers, and they are trying to take advantage of these low interest rates. And so one question that I've been hearing, and it's one of these that I feel like is appropriate to address, is do we expect to see a housing crash? Because I know when the pandemic started, a lot of people were asking that question because they weren't quite sure, is this going to basically be a repeat of 2008? So let's take a look at what happened back then and what's actually happening now. So back between 2006 and 2008, you actually had a surplus of homes on the market and not enough buyers for those homes. So if you're looking at that, that's actually quite literally the opposite of of what we're dealing with right now. Whereas back then you had too many homes on the market, now we don't see enough homes on the market. So that's one thing that is working in our favor that would work against the possibility of a housing crash. Another big contributing factor to the reason why we're not on the same path as we were towards a housing crash that happened back in 2008 is the fact that homeowners today have substantial equity in their homes. So take a look at this quote. This comes from the Homeowners Equity Report on CoreLogic's website. It says in the third quarter of 2020, the average homeowner gained approximately $17,000 in equity during the past year. This marks the largest average equity gain since the first quarter of 2014. So this should help create peace of mind for anybody who may be thinking of selling. Especially in the Nashville area, if you were thinking about selling, chances are you have gained substantial equity. And as long as you've left that equity alone, if you are looking to sell, right now is the time to sell because you will be getting top dollar for your home because we have that massive buyer demand that we are seeing right now. And then another thing to look at that's different between back then and now is lending standards. So back leading up to the 2008 crash, lenders had very loose lending standards for anybody trying to apply for a mortgage. So it was basically they could do a stated income form that said, hey, their income was X. And so that was part of the problem that led to the 2008 crash because lenders were being really loose and free with who they were giving loans to. Nowadays, it's essentially like you're having to give up your firstborn child when it comes to applying for a mortgage. There is multiple layers of documentation that happens, and I know if you have to go through the process, be prepared. It can feel kind of invasive having to provide so much information, but that is one way that lenders are working to safeguard you and safeguard the housing market because they don't want to be loose with their standards like they were in 2008 because we saw what that ultimately led to and the problems that it caused back then. So again, if we're looking at the Nashville real estate market, I probably sound like a broken record, but we are seeing massive buyer demand. We are still dealing with low inventory. However, we are starting to see an uptick in the number of homes that are coming on the market, but because we continue to see this huge buyer demand that just continues to fuel into the Nashville real estate market, it can still, we're still dealing with an inventory shortage across the board. So if you are preparing to buy, you need to have an agent that is prepared to fight for you and knows how to build a really strong offer. You basically need the best basketball coach, but for real estate, right? You need someone who's going to coach you through the entire process, give you the best game plan to give you the best chance of being successful. So if you have any questions about the Nashville real estate market or you are thinking about moving here, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. All of my contact information is below. You can also grab my free Nashville relocation guide below. I'm Caitlin Martin. I'll see you next time.